What's up, Jason? Welcome back to the SABM podcast.
It's great to be back. This is 4 years, four years since the last time I
Yeah.
saw your face.
Yeah, I looked it up, but before we hopped on the Zoom call today in September 2021. So I guess I'm just trying to think
2021.
back what was happening September 2021.
COVID was over finally, and Thursday night football had come back, which spelled the end of Ring Knocker. That was the end of that. Um, right. Try to get a bunch of guys on a call on a Thursday night when football's going on. That just wasn't going to happen anymore. So we called a stop for that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I gave up on the evening. That's what when I started. It was a evening networking meetup, and then
hmm
it felt really good never to do those again. So
Yeah, absolutely. Lockdown. I mean, listen, we didn't have the same kind of lockdown on Bali that you guys had back in the States, which is one reason why I stayed on Bali. But I mean, it for Ring Knocker, it was a win, right? Because nobody had anything else to do on a Thursday night, so guys just came and hung out on the Zoom call. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, today, so you've got a new company that you started, John Galt Services, and
John
I'm
Galt
excited to
Services.
to learn about what you're doing, what you're up to. Give us an update. Tell us what your new company's all about.
All right. Well, so as you know, I've been out here on Bali since 2019, right? So Bali's an island in Indonesia, just exactly 12 time zones away from the East Coast. And I've been working out here, right? So I did a lot of contracting out here, and I've been involved in kind of a couple local startups, and I've got to know a lot of Indonesians, young kind of technical Indonesians out here, and I've learned the language. I mentioned right before we got on, I just got married. I married a local girl, so I've kind of embedded myself into the local culture, and I've learned something, right? What I learned is that young Indonesians are kind of an undiscovered resource in the world. Um, People are accustomed to hearing about sort of the Filipino VAs and nearshoring to South America and that kind of thing. And what we have here is something entirely different, right? So Indonesia is a big country, 200 million people. The folks who live here go to great schools. They do foreign exchange programs. Um, Up in the mountain villages, they're poor, but you go to the cities and they're wealthy, right? These are when you get down to the young techie folks. These are no kidding professionals out here that really operate at the same kind of at the same level as you would expect as a company would expect who's hiring young folks in the U.S. or in Europe, right? But um, Indonesia tends to look internally, and so um, the the rest of the world who outsources, you know, work of various kinds, typically knowledge work, doesn't really know about Indonesia, right? So these guys out here are an undiscovered resource, and unfortunately, the Indonesian economy it's not great, right? There's a lot of corruption. It's it can be tough, right? And so consequently, what happens is these kids will go, to those great schools and the exchange programs and all the rest of it, and then they'll come home fully trained up and ready to go to work, and they wind up, supporting their parents and living at home and making, if they're lucky, making $1,000 a month, right? So we come along and we make a proposition, and the proposition is, look, let us put you in front of Western employers who are looking to outsource, right? They're looking to, they want everything that anybody else does who's outsourcing. They want to find a resource who can do the job, the customer support, the technical support, or whatever, who's got the capacity, but who can do it at a lower price and provide savings to the business. Um, but has become somewhat frustrated with the level of game that they find in a typical outsourcing scenario to, like, say the Philippines or a place like that. We want to introduce them to these guys, right? So
Mhm.
it's a whole different level of capability. True professionals who've got really mad skills, especially technical skills, and who can do that kind of work at a much higher level of quality than an employer will typically see in an outsourced scenario, for a price tag that's really not that much more than than what you're accustomed to seeing out there. So that's the proposal. And for the kids who come to work for us, it's a windfall, right? We pay 2 to 3 times the going rate for the kinds of work that we hire for, which it's a life-changing experience, for the kids who come to work for us. And at the same time, it's a genuine savings for the companies who hire us to do the work. It's remote work. It's remote to our customers, but not to us, right? We put them to work right here in the office, here on Bali, and they're closely managed and trained, trained according to our customers' requirements, and they do great work. So that's what we do.
Yeah, well, congrats, man. This is a really cool new business that you've started. And, I was just kind of thinking of it on the, the from the perspective of somebody that's started a business,
Mm-hmm.
and or has a business, and, maybe they're just getting started, right? And they're on a budget. And I just remember when, and probably you as well, like when we were first starting out, it's like, okay, you're trying to look for talent. You can't afford to hire people full time. And you go to websites like Upwork and Fiverr and, different places like that, to find these kind of ninja skill sets,
Mm-hmm.
and so, but you never know what you're going to get. Right. And
You never know what you're going to get. Yeah.
you never
Listen, I've been there too, right? I've, I've definitely spent my time on Upwork. And honestly, that is one of the things that we bring to the table, right? Because at the root of this whole thing is me, right? I mean, you
yeah.
know me, Scott, and probably a lot of the guys who are watching this thing, either know me or know of me, right? Like, we've been around, and the truth is, I'm a career software developer post Navy, and I've been running systems and people and teams for a long time. And so I'm very, very comfortable with the idea of putting together a group of young people who can serve a variety of customers in technical or quasi-technical roles and make it work, right? So that's the key. Not only are they well trained and talented, but they're managed. they're closely managed. They got great equipment. Everybody who comes here gets a new laptop. We got great broadband and all the rest of it. And when they're working, they're working under close supervision, to a managed plan, and that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. You're the trust, the bridge, right? Between,
Yeah,
it's not, you're not going to Upwork, or you're not just going to some random website to find
right,
your talent at the cheapest,
right.
amount, right? So especially for academy grads or other veteran business owners or folks that are building their teams and
Mhm.
looking for very specific skill sets, having that person like you that, okay, like Jason's gonna, he's gonna understand what I need, what I'm looking for, and want to find a solution that he stands behind. So I think that
Yeah,
that says a lot.
that's the idea.
When did you
In
start that?
fact,
Oh, go
when
ahead.
did we start? Oh, I mean, we're new. I mean, we got going. I mean, there's actually it's kind of a fun story. I I was going sailing, right? I got a buddy from Hong Kong who's got a boat, not a Navy guy, just Englishman. Got a boat in Hong Kong, and we met, a couple of years ago. And he invited me to go sailing with him. He keeps his boat in Indonesia, right? So I got on a plane. I flew out to Sulawesi, up in Manado, like way out in the middle of nowhere, and got to this guy's boat, and it was completely broken. It'd been sitting around, in the yard for 9 months, and the diesel engine wouldn't start, the generator wouldn't generate, and just nothing worked, right? The navigation systems wouldn't navigate. So I'm like, well, okay, in theory I'm a qualified naval officer, right? So and I do speak Bahasa Indonesia, right? So I grabbed an electrician and a mechanic off the beach, and a couple of their guys, and we went to work, and it took about a week to get the boat into kind of full working order and ready for sea, right? So that was a lot of fun, and it was actually more fun than the sailing. And so I came back, and I just, it was just kind of this light bulb went on. Like, wow, I've been here long enough. I speak the language. I can actually deal with locals on the local economy. I can get things done out here. And so I put out a message on LinkedIn, and I just say, hey, listen, I'm in Indonesia. If you get stuck, give me a call. I'm out here, right? And so a couple of weeks later, I got a ping on LinkedIn from a West Point grad
Hmm.
who's a CEO or COO rather of a company in the States that they've got a web app and they do some stuff, and they basically they were interested in setting up a customer service operation in Indonesia, and so he said, listen, can you do this? And I thought, well, yeah, I can. I did some I did some research and kind of came to this conclusion that I told you about, which is that these folks out here really do have that level of talent. And oh, by the way, there's kind of every culture has a superpower, right? So Indonesians have a superpower of their own, which is languages, right? So the typical Indonesian speaks at a minimum two languages, probably three. They speak Bahasa Indonesia, they speak their local language. If they're married, they probably speak their spouse's language, which is different again. There's 700 languages, live languages in Indonesia, right?
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's crazy, right? So, yeah, you know how it goes, right? Like if you grow up speaking more than one language, you're sort of primed to learn languages for the rest of your life, right? These people are language ninjas. It's crazy. So, you know, around here on Bali, you just run into this just everywhere you go. They speak Bahasa Indonesia, they speak Mandarin, they speak English, all these languages fluently. So we went looking, and very quickly we were able to put together a slate of candidates to serve this company that wanted to do business in Asia, a slate of candidates who spoke English perfectly and also spoke some Asian language, Japanese, Korean, what have you, Mandarin, fluently, perfectly fluently. They were trilingual. It took a week, and we had a, a big handful of candidates. So that got me started. I looked at that. I'm like, we can do this. And so, we hired some people and put it together, and here we are. That was last October. Now it's April, and we're scrabbling for traction. So that's how it got started.
Yeah. And so how does it work? So speaking of traction, so if somebody's listening and like what I guess what skill sets, like what's kind of like the,
Good question.
like what needs do you feel that, a
So
business person or somebody that has a,
that's
yeah, might
that's
need.
been the challenge, right? Because I mean, it's one skill set, right? The skill set is service and languages, right?
Okay.
But the question is, how do you position that for for U.S. customers, and what's the sweet spot? Initially, we thought that we were really aiming at kind of staff augmentation. Imagine like that initial customer. They've got an in-house service team, an in-house support team, and so they want to augment their support team with more bodies that have special skills like languages and whatnot. Um, Turned out to be a unique case. We really
Mhm.
had a hard time finding more customers who really fit that model. And so since then we've changed our targeting, and what we're really focused on now are um, sort of professional call center operations, right? Existing help desk centers, IT service companies, the kinds of operations that they already have a call center, right, of some kind, and they're looking for additional augmentation, right? Either to service Asian language, Asian time zone customers, or overnight overnight operators in a U.S. operation, right? So we're on the opposite side of the clock. So we're in a great position to provide overnight service. So that's been kind of the current sales push is outreach to existing call center and IT service operations. So naturally, all the new customers that we've recently found are none of that. They're all VAs, right? So it turns out we also provide VAs, which is a very similar skill set, right? At the end of the day, it's service and to some degree language at a very good price.
Yeah, and I know, I mean, I know that you've, um, the country as a whole kind of has its strengths, but I think each individual also has their strengths, right? And so they
It's really
probably went to
true.
school and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. So I think you could probably also build your offerings around the people that, hey, yeah, I'm looking for a 2 to 3x on my on the going
Hmm.
rate of what I would make here in my country, and this I can do whatever their skill set is, and then I think that's also another way. And then they could probably, if they're really good, start training other people who are interested in that specific skill set and then you kind of just see, then you see where the market kind
Yeah.
of takes you.
I think as we grow,
Yeah.
that's probably going to happen. So far, so one of the it just turned out it's something that we as an organization are really good at is recruiting, right? So we have a very strong candidate pipeline, so strong that it's really worked out very well when we start with a customer requirement. I need somebody who's good at databases and who speaks Mandarin, right? And so we can go out onto the Indonesian job market and source people who meet those specific requirements and put together a slate of interview ready candidates within a week, 10 days, right? And along the line we'll go through. I mean, good example right now. I've got a customer who's looking for somebody to do kind of pre-sales, right? Um, so in the last 6 or 7 days, we've been through 1,000 applications, give or take,
Hmm.
um, around that requirement. And we've narrowed it down to three interview ready candidates where we've done sort of text message based screening to evaluate their English skills, graduated them to video screening to check the personality and their ability to interact in English with no accent, and reference checks and right. So we've got three people out of 1,000 applicants who are going to be talking to this customer next week, right? So
Mhm.
that's it's a numbers game, and turns out that's something that we're really good at. So right now, so far, we hired a spec, and we can do that very quickly.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, that's really cool. And what would you say, so you started this in October, it's April as we're end of April as we're recording this.
Hmm.
You know, what are your goals? What's kind of top of mind for you right now, as you look out over the next 90 days, short-term goals and then maybe long-term moonshot type goals, 3, 4, 5
Yeah.
years down the road. Where do you see this going?
So we have like the fundamental sales goal. Like how, how many placements do we need in order to feel like we're headed in the right direction and we're in it for the long term? And the answer is one a month, which is not an impossible sales goal, right? Like if we can place one new place, not even a new customer per month, just one new placement per month, then we're headed for the moon, right? And that adds up. Compound interest adds up very quickly. Not there yet. We're not even halfway there yet, but we're getting there. And that is the goal that everybody's focused on. Um, that's that's the key, right? So once we can do that, then we can do all the things that you mentioned, right? Where you get a kind of a critical mass of people, and then you get your people training your people, and you get real systems in place, and you can start to be opinionated in terms of the system. So now you're not just offering individuals as augmentations to other teams, but you're actually offering teams, right? And you can build your own systems and offer those systems as a package to customers, right? So that's that's kind of the next level that we'd like to get to. And candidly, it's a very competitive field, right? I mean, there are a lot of outsourcing operations out there. It's a major component of the Filipino economy, right? Same for India. It's not quite as big in Indonesia, but right here on Bali, I could name 5 or 6 other outsourcing operations just on this end of the island, right? And honestly, they're different, right? I mean, when we look at our competition, um, most of them pay their people on the order of half what we pay our people, right? It's a different level of operator. And so that's really what we want to do is we want to differentiate ourselves on, the level of service that we provide, that the quality of the resource that we provide, and frankly on the outcome for our people, right? Like we want to catapult our people into the next level of their career. That's where we see ourselves going. You know.
All right. How about and then I know you're just getting started, so this question might be hard to answer, but like,
Mm.
what's kind of like a moonshot goal for you? Is, as I
Yeah.
don't know if yeah, what are you thinking?
Well, so right now we have to go out and find people, right? Like that's what we do, right? I described this kind of candidate pipeline that we have, and that's great. It's a lot of work, and um, it's what lets us hire on spec. Now, what I'd like to see is for us to achieve sufficient critical mass that they start finding us, right? I really want to be that. I want to be. I, Look, we tell this story. It's the same story I told you, right? This notion that young Indonesians are different, right? They're not like you go all around Southeast Asia and you don't find the level of professionalism and ability that you do here in Indonesia. And not too many people know about it, right? So we share that story. We share it on social media, like the local kids read it and stuff. I do a lot of screenings, right? And the the response that I get from the kids who I'm interviewing when they ask me, who are you guys and what are you doing? When I tell them that story, a very common response is stunned disbelief, right? Because these kids have worked so hard for so long, it just astonishes them that somebody's coming from the outside who recognizes their value and really wants to take it someplace. I love that. I love the idea that we can make the work that these kids do matter on the world stage, right? So I want that message to get out there, and I want these talented kids to see enough evidence of its truth in us that they believe it and come find us and come looking for jobs at John Galt. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, and you may have shared this on the previous podcast. I mean, it was a while back, but what led you to Indonesia and living in Bali? Like, I'm just kind of I don't even
uh,
remember the like. What's your origin story of moving there?
well, nobody knew COVID was coming, right? Like it was 2019. I had been I'd not too long before been through a pretty rough divorce and had spent most of the last decade as a traveling consultant, right? So I'm a software engineer and I've been traveling around working for big institutions um, and not too long before I came out here, the customers that I had in that space had begun to go virtual with their consultants, right? They realized that they were actually paying more for hotels and plane tickets and stuff than they were actually paying for the consultants like me, for our hourly rate. So for the year or so, maybe 2 years before I came out here, I had already been working mostly remotely from my customers around the U.S. And so, you know, bad divorce, really bad Chicago winter, and I kind of looked in the mirror and looked at the girlfriend that I had at that point. I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, I don't need to be sitting in Chicago in February to do this work. I could be anywhere. He had a condo in Florida, so we moved there. And then we met a guy who, was also a techie guy who was working on Bali and doing the digital nomad thing. And I thought, huh, that sounds like fun. And so we just did it. We came out for 3 months, and 3 months became 6 months, and then COVID hit, and nobody went anywhere for 2 years. That's how it went.
Wow.
By the time COVID was over, I'm like, I'm staying. I like it here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. So, And then today, with this new business, you're creating lots of opportunities for the country, right? I mean, so like this is kind of
Here's hoping.
I think that this is really an interesting, you kind of find yourself in this new place, years ago, and then, today here's an opportunity where you're, you know, bringing the folks that live there new opportunities.
Come
So
on. I mean, Scott, you do the same thing, right? How long you been running SABM?
20, gosh, I was thinking of that this 2017. So 8 years
Right?
this coming
So,
May.
like you got a group of people who you like and you respect, you care for, so you roll up your sleeves and you do what you can, right? You're a good neighbor. Same here. This isn't my country, right? I'm not from here, right? So if I want to live here, and the Indonesians aren't quite as tolerant of people from the outside as, maybe we are, right? So if you live here, you got to kind of make a contribution, right? And so honestly, that's one of the motivations behind like why this particular business. Because I do love living here. My wife is from here, like this is home now. And I want it to be abundantly clear to the powers that be that having me here is a good thing, right? So I'm definitely doing what I can to make a no kidding positive difference, where I am here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And bringing jobs and money
yeah,
into
yeah.
the country is pretty valuable. So,
It's a lot easier to bring it in than it is to bring it out. I'll tell you that.
what connections are most valuable for you, Jason, to move this idea forward?
Oh, well, I mean, I'd love to meet anybody, obviously, who's running any kind of a call center operation or anything like that. We can have that conversation, right? Um, I I'm also I'm new to this game, right? Like this whole sort of offshoring, outsourcing sort of business is. I kind of jumped into. I do this too. I jumped into it with both feet, without really having all that much of a background. I mean, I know how to do the work, but in terms of understanding how the industry operates, I'm really kind of learning. So I would absolutely love to meet other folks who are uh, in that business. I mean, partly because I want to hear their stories, and also because we have resources, right? So there are positions, and this is actually one of the bits of traction that we do find. There are positions that can be hard to fill, and we probably fill them. So love to help.
All right. Well, good. Well, what did we miss? Was there anything that we you wanted to cover that we or did we touch all the bases, or anything else you want to discuss before we wrap up?
Sure, I'll tell you a story.
Oh yeah, let's
All right, so
fire
so
away.
we just I mentioned we just got married, right? So we're in the U.S. Visiting my mom for the first time in like 5 or 6 years, in Dayton, Washington, which is Eastern Washington State, right? And we went out and we had barbecue, right? Everybody loves barbecue, and I don't know, there must be like 12 different varieties of barbecue in the U.S., right? So we got to thinking because IU is my wife's name, and I didn't want to push her, but she came out and said, I could live here. She likes the U.S. and she likes the country, which is nice, right? And so we're talking about that, and we had this neat idea, and I don't know if anybody out there will ever have an opportunity to try this unless you actually make it to Bali. But see, the Balinese have their own kind of barbecue, right? It's called
Wow.
babi guling. It's like a suckling pig kind of a thing. But you go to it's a particular kind. It's a babi guling restaurant. You go there, and they have like every part of the pig, like crispy skin and the meat from there, and like all these spices in there. It's completely different from anything that you've ever tasted, but it is 100% recognizably barbecue, right? And so we had this idea, like if we did, spend time in the U.S., how awesome would it be to find somebody who's, actually run a restaurant before, and partner with them and open up a Bobby Goulding restaurant, like Balinese barbecue someplace in the country in the US. How cool would that be?
That would be really cool, man. So yeah, you just threw that out into the universe. So
Yeah, yeah. And I'd love to do that.
yeah, well, I love barbecue, that's for sure. So I'm sure it would
Yeah.
be.
So Bobby Goulding, Babi Goulding, Guling. Google it. If there's a place near you where you can try it, who knows? I can't imagine there can't be that many places in the US that have it. But if you can find it, ooh, it's good. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Jason. What's the best way for folks to connect with you and learn about your new company and get in touch?
All right. Well, if you've ever read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, you know the name John Galt, right? His character in Atlas Shrugged. JohnGalt.id is the website. You can reach me direct email, jason@johngalt.id. And I'm on LinkedIn and all the things. Um, so easy to find, and I'm sure Scott, you can point people to me if they need pointing.
Yep. Yeah. And so in the show notes, we'll link to your LinkedIn profile and your website, and that
Great.
way people can reach out and get in touch and learn more about what you do. And awesome, man. Well, it's been great catching up after
Yeah.
almost 4 years, and
Long time.
here's to
I I said before we got started, I mentioned you don't look any different, man. Like you don't look like you're aging at all. I don't know
well,
what your
well,
secret
I
is.
don't. Well, we did have. I did have
I
a
mean,
guest on. Yeah, maybe my quick story here. So,
yeah.
if anybody listened to the podcast with Don Greer, he's a West Point grad, and he had this transformational story of how he lost like over 100 pounds, and
Whoa.
if you haven't people haven't listened to it, definitely check that out. But he did it through Weight Watchers, right? And I'm like,
Wait, what? Are they still around?
so listen, so Weight Watchers,
Wow.
I'm like, no, there's no way I'm eating like packaged foods and that. I'm like, so that's always what I thought that it was.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, I'm driving back from Florida in end of January from our event for our 10X Vets group, and I was like, man, like I probably should probably lose some weight. Like I don't need to lose 100 pounds, but maybe like 10 or 20 would be great, right? So
Mm.
I don't know why it just popped into my head, but I thought of Don and his story, and I was like, all right, Weight Watchers, let me just check this thing out. I downloaded the app. I think it's $15 a month, and you can eat whatever you want. Like you don't have to like eat these different types of weird
Huh.
like meals or anything. You eat whatever you want, but you have like points per day that you're supposed to stay within. And it's just based on what your weight loss goal is and how much you exercise. So you're like, okay, well,
Mhm.
I want to lose 20 pounds. This is how active I am. And then it says, okay, Scott, 35 points a day. Eat whatever you want. Right. And so then you just
Fair
kind
enough.
of, you don't have to like make any major shifts. It's like, okay, so
Yeah.
for breakfast, cream in your coffee is 2 points. So instead of drinking 3 cups of coffee with cream, which would have been 6 points, I just drink black coffee and I save those 6 points, right? And just like little like hacks like that.
All right. So I got to ask, when you have extra points, what do you like spending them on?
So I give up the cream, right, for like a
Yeah.
bourbon. Bourbon's like three.
All right. All right. Fair enough.
So I totally gamified. Anyways, but I've lost 17 pounds since
Wow.
February 1st, so a couple of months
In 3 months. Wow, that's pretty good.
with not doing like any huge lifestyle
Yeah.
adjustments,
No,
right?
that's
And
great.
so, and anyway, so I don't know. Yeah, so maybe if we would have had this podcast beginning of January or last year sometime, you would have said I looked awful. I don't know, but
Yeah, right.
uh,
Uh, well, man, congratulations. I mean, that feels good, right? You feel the difference?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, man. I mean, it's
Clothes
just
fit better and all that. Yeah.
so. Anyways, I know we kind of went off on a
Nice.
tangent there, but
All right. Yeah.
it's been Jason. It's been great having you back on, man. Congrats on
Yeah. Thank you.
the new company, and here's to an awesome 2025.
All right. Cheers, man.